this session is about how engaging adjunct faculty at Mount West effectively. So I'm Kelly, Terry, and Kristen's going to be helping during the presentation as well. So what we did is Morgan wanted us to put together a presentation to talk a little bit about how we can get our adjuncts more engaged, which I know we've talked a lot about this in the past, but we're hoping to bring a little bit of new information to the table today. And then we're going to have a little bit of discussion at the end. So I think some of it's not going to be real surprising to you. But I do hope that together we can kind of come up with some ideas as to which ways in which we might be able to help better improve not only our communication with adjuncts, but to improve their overall engagement with the programs that they're involved in and more widespread with college and institutional activities. So I think that the hope is that if we can get our adjuncts more actively involved, that inherently that's going to obviously roll over into improving student success and retention, which is what we've been kind of spearheading that here lately. So hopefully this information can be a little bit helpful in that regard. So to start off with, I just wanted to talk about what our objective is today is to implement engagement strategies to increase adjunct communication and participation. So why does this engagement matter so much? So first of all, adjuncts are a significant portion of the workforce. I tried to look at what percentage of our faculty are adjuncts, but I really couldn't find that number. But when you look at comparing community college to university, there are actually more adjuncts on staff at university level than even at the community college level. But I do think our adjunct numbers have increased over the past few years. They have a direct impact on student success because obviously they're teaching a lot of our courses within the different programs here at the college. Program consistency and quality depends on our adjuncts being bought in and actively engaging with our goals, missions, and our philosophies, and institutional culture and retention. So obviously, if our adjuncts aren't buying into the culture of the institution here, that's going to have an effect on student success and retention. And if our adjuncts are more coherent with what we are doing as full-time faculty, I do think that our retention and success rate would go up, obviously. So what are our challenges for adjunct faculty? I tried to look for a video that kind of talked about these challenges because these are really across the nation what the challenges are. They have limited campus presence. Our adjuncts are only really here if they teach a face-to-face class, they're only here to teach their class and then they leave. If we have adjuncts in our programs that only teach online, then they possibly are really never here. So we're really never even seeing them a lot at all. So that limit definitely can impact their performance and just the cohesive nature of our relationship. Competing professional obligations. Most of our adjuncts, obviously, this is not their sole job because the pay is terrible. They have to have other jobs and outside obligations. So obviously, we understand as a college that this is not their priority. And we shouldn't really expect that this is their priority because their other outside obligations is probably going to be more than likely their primary job. So we have to realize that this is not their primary obligation. So we are going to compete against whatever it is that is their primary obligation. We have these communication gaps of how do we make sure everything that we need them to know is getting to them. And sometimes as, program faculty, we know what we need to tell them, but they also need to know institutionally all the things that are expected of them. So we have to make sure that we're communicating both of those things to them. So sometimes that gap in communication comes more from the institutional type information that we don't have as much a handle on. So we have to make sure there that we're filling that gap with making sure they get all the communication that is needed. And then lastly, feeling disconnected from decision making. I do think the college here tries to, through the faculty council, tries to make sure that we as full-time faculty have a lot of input into major decisions that are coming down from above. But the adjuncts for sure are going to feel like, especially at the institutional level, that they aren't really involved in that type of decision. Can we, improve that? Maybe, but we definitely at the program level and at the department level, I think can improve this so that we make sure that we're getting their opinions on major decisions that we're making at those sub levels. So that kind of encompasses what are our challenges. So how do we kind of change these? What are our barriers to communication with our adjunct faculty? Number one, over-reliance on email. So we do, and I used to email all the time, but now it seems that text messaging is probably a better way to get in touch with our adjuncts because they're probably checking their phones more often than their emails. But so we shouldn't really just rely only on email as our only mode of correspondence with our adjunct faculty. Information overload. I feel like our adjunct faculty, my adjunct faculty will email me and say, what are all these emails that are coming through from, they get emails from Mike and from other people. And I think we need to make sure when they're getting those emails that we are communicating with them, which ones are the ones they really need to be focusing more on and explaining to them, what the emails are all about. So when we overload them with information, you know what they're going to do? They're just going to say, I'm going to delete all of them because this is just information overload. So if the simpler we can make it for them, I think the better it will be. Timing of communication. When we communicate with them, we know these people have outside obligations. So if we will communicate with them when we know that they have the time to listen to what we're wanting to tell them, I think that would be helpful. And then again, looking at, okay, they maybe communicate when they're here, like make sure everything we want to tell them, if they are teaching face-to-face, we're telling it to them when they're actually physically here on campus, instead of waiting till they're out, trying to finish their other obligations. And then lastly, the last barrier to communication, lack of clarity or relevance. Don't we all hate that when we're getting all of these emails and we're like, how does that even apply to me? Just send me things that I need to know and I need to act on. So I think if we can, filter through some of the communications that we're sending out to our adjuncts and making sure what we are sending to the adjuncts is completely relevant to them. So that at every email and every communication that we send to them, it's important for them to know that. So they're not getting all of these other outside communications that really don't apply to them, that may only apply to us as full-time faculty, or some of them may be only applying to different departments that they are not an adjunct, but they're not a part of that department. So I think if we can weed that out, that can help with two of these. The information overload would be taken care of, and then we would be making sure that the information we're telling them is relevant to them. So what are some principles of effective engagement of these faculty? Like I talked about, intentional communication, consistency, and predictability. I do think, I think we're getting better at that. I know some of the adjuncts that I work with will say to me, it seems like you're always asking me to do this in a different way, but it's because we're being asked to do it in a different way. So I think even just as simple as like the syllabus, I do think the templates have gotten more self-explanatory. They're not changing as much. So I do think it's easier for adjuncts to follow. We have had this big changeover of Blackboard, which I know has been harder for adjuncts. But, now that we have that new system, I don't think that's going to be changing in the near future. So being consistent with those things that they're always going to be dealing with is very important, and making even things that change, making the change predictable is nice, so that if each semester this is going to be asked of me, then that's good. They know what the expectation is going to be, and that we don't send out all of these things that now are new things that they're having to do that they didn't used to have to do or wasn't some of their responsibilities. Inclusion and respect. Again, I think we try to include our adjunct faculty, but, I want you to try to start thinking of, ways, how could you at your, wherever you are at the department or program level, how can you include the adjuncts a little more? And what are some things that we can do to make them feel more included? And Kristen and I are going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, some ideas, and then we're going to do a brainstorming activity that I know everybody wants to do again, but just to see, does anybody have any ideas that we're not thinking about of how can we make them feel more included and hence, more respected? And then lastly, value of adjunct expertise. This one, people engage more when they feel like what they bring to the table matters. And what they bring to the table is something that we really feel is valuable to the institution and to our programs. So how do we make them feel valued? Unfortunately, above and beyond monetary money, we can only pay them. And I do feel like our adjuncts, and we're going to talk a little bit more about pay, are still grossly underpaid for what we're asking them to do. But I don't know that we're going to be able to change that. And in light of that, how can we, improve the way we value our adjuncts if we can't pay them more? That's what the struggle is. So we'll talk a little bit more about what are some ideas beyond money. And, and also, is there actually an option to possibly pay them more? And I know we just had a slight increase in adjunct pay, but is there talks of another possible bump coming up? I don't know. I know there was a few years ago, I think we talked about a graded increase, if I'm not mistaken. And so hopefully that's still coming, but I'm not sure. Maybe some of you know in this room and can tell us that in just a moment.
Hey, Kelly, do you know what we are paying currently?
Yes, it's $600 a credit hour. So 18.
Sorry to break your flow.
Yeah, and in a moment, I found some just right before I came up here. I wanted to look and see how that actually relates to state and national rates. It's interesting. Believe it or not, we're not on the high end of the nation. Can't believe we're not like ranking at number one or something. So strategy one, how can we try to improve some of these issues? Number one, structured communication channels. I think we do a lot of these, centralized communication hub, using Teams, using Zoom, using Blackboard as a way of communicating with them. Weekly or bi-weekly updates. I think, just sending brief updates might be good, just even I think coming from us at like a program level and at whatever department level you're at, just a sentence, paragraph saying this is what's going on might be more meaningful to them than them getting updates from the institutional level. Clear subject lines and expectations. I always like this one. It's like when you're sending an email, if the subject line can just say, do you really need to read this or not? That could help, just that, especially our adjuncts out, letting them know, hey, I really need to read this. I need to pay attention to this. I think that would be helpful. The second strategy that we came up with are predictable touch points. So I do think, I know from my standpoint, my organization is not real good with the adjuncts that we have in our program. I kind of do meetings and things on the fly, like, oh, I need to bring in the adjuncts, or I need to call a Zoom meeting with the adjuncts because we have this issue or this problem or this new assessment issue that I want to talk to them about. But having a standing virtual meeting might be something to consider, and just have it in optional attendance. Then we'd probably looking at a blank screen. If that's would be, maybe if we could, schedule these meetings more frequently and have letting them know that every Monday, every third Monday, we're going to have the meeting. That might work. Recorded updates for flexibility. I will say that I have started recording some conversations, like Adele and I will have conversations or brief meetings about issues happening within the program. And those recordings I make available to our adjuncts if it's something we're talking about regarding student success or things that are going on within just at the instructional level. If we're talking about things that are working, things that are not working. And we have recorded that, and actually, per our accreditors, we have meeting minutes of 2 people. We have to actually have meeting minutes when her and I have a meeting. So we actually have that in minute form, so I can send those out too, which I think have been helpful to the adjuncts that we use. And again, consistent scheduling. If we're going to do something like this, I think because they have all of these outside obligations, if you can consistently schedule these, and that would be helpful. And then a third strategy, inclusion in department life or at the institutional level, and invite adjuncts to meetings and trainings, which we do invite them. I always tell even our clinical faculty, I say, you can come to all of these meetings that we're having, but they're always doing something else. So I think when we say invite adjuncts to meetings and trainings, we have started, I know CETL, we've looked at having more specific training for the adjuncts. Now we have the adjuncts orientation at times where that are more conducive to their schedule. So I think we need to always just look at the time issue with their outside obligations, share meeting minutes and recordings. We're already doing that, and include adjunct representation on committees. When I was researching to do this presentation, there are some colleges that have adjunct representation on certain college committees, but when I think back to our faculty council constitution, I don't think that is not included in the constitution. We don't have them as actual members. But we've talked about this before, but I think it would be difficult to include them because we always meet during the day, and a lot of them wouldn't be able to come to the meetings. So I don't know if it's something we still would want to go back to think about, maybe including, since now we do everything on Zoom, maybe they could Zoom in. And if they were on a lunch break, or, kind of schedule it in their schedule to be able to attend a committee meeting. Because I do think that this definitely would make them feel more included. I know how we all love to go to meetings. They might love to come to our committee meeting. Just something to think about. So recognition and value, we need to acknowledge contributions publicly. And this is something that I think is easy to do. And we may already be doing this. You know how we do student highlights on our Facebook and social media? We could, on a regular basis, highlight our adjunct faculty. This one's probably an easy fix. Maybe do that a little bit more often and acknowledge how they contribute to our departments and our programs, highlighting their achievements, and again, solicit feedback and act on any, recommendations that the adjunct faculty are kind of, giving. When they give their input to us, we need to make sure that they feel like we're really taking that into consideration and acting on it. This means that really anytime we're doing department level or program level assessment, they need to be involved. But again, unfortunately, even with our assessment reports, I know with the adjunct faculty that I have, it is time consuming and difficult. So sometimes we have to I end up doing more than I probably should. So they're not really learning the process well. And then strategy 5, professional development access. We need to offer flexible professional development options. And Morgan has done done such a good job of having a lot of professional development is posted the reporting. So they do have those available. I do think there is value in face-to-face. So if we could, look into some of these professional development seminars that we're hosting, could we host more of them in the evenings when adjunct faculty would be more likely to attend, compensate when possible, and anytime you're doing professional development, if you can offer them continuing education. So if we can look at how can we get with these agencies that give the continuing education to our licensures. I think they'd be more likely to come. I know in the physical therapy realm, if the clinicians thought if they could get CEUs for it, they would be more likely to come. And it's gotten easier. I don't know if in your all's in the other fields, but with our board, it's become much easier to get continuing education approved. So it's a simpler process. So if we could look at what types of professional development opportunities we have here, could transfer into those education units and help. I think they would feel like it was more beneficial to them because they can use it as part of their license renewal. And then we need to align the professional development with adjunct needs. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, Morgan has sent out some surveys to our adjunct faculty, and we've talked about sending more surveys that are asking them, what they would like to see in the realm of professional development. And I know that we at the CETL sent it out to the full-time faculty, but I'm not for sure if we made it more specific to our adjunct faculty. So we plan to do that so that we make sure that we're aligning professional development opportunities with what they want us to provide for them. And strategy 6, leadership visibility, regular check-ins from the program directors. And I think we all do this, just checking in to make sure they don't have any questions or they don't need any extra support. And then I do think that we need to look at, can we make their lives easier, more so than we're even already doing? Are there things that we can do to take a little bit of a load off of them, since we do realize that their pay is not great and that we are asking them to do more than what we're paying them to do. Open door virtual hours, clear points of contact. So I wanted to talk a little bit about, after going through what things we can do, what does the research actually say? So there was a big research study that was done that answered the question, how did 6 community colleges design supports for part-time faculty, a report on achieving the dreams, engaging adjuncts projects. So I thought this was applicable here, since we are now involved with the Achieving the Dream corporation. So this was done by a subset of that actual corporations, this research study. So the article examined a 2-year initiative led by the Achieving the Dream in partnership with the Community College Research Center, in which 6 community colleges implemented and developed strategies to better engage and support adjunct faculty. Surveys, interviews, and institutional data were used to understand how the supports were specifically designed. So some common types of strategies included, and it's interesting when I was looking and reading this research article, a lot of what the research found, again, as an institution we are already doing, we might be able to, beef it up a bit, but we are already doing a lot of these strategies. First, professional development and onboarding. Some developed institutional-wide supports such as resource platforms, mentoring programs, or faculty communities that extended beyond individual departments. So while it talks about professional development and onboarding, who in here, I think the deans all do new employee orientation. Do adjuncts come? So which I do think I think they used to, that was a problem. We couldn't even get them here.
They don't all come, but a decent amount of them.
Because remember back when none would come, we had, and no one would come. So I do think they're at least, we're meeting them where they are. I think it's in the evening, right? Isn't it in the evening? So it's better suited for their
In the fall, though,
scheduling.
I got a new spring faculty and we were checking to see if there was one this time. It was only fall, so.
Okay, yeah, that's a good point. That's right. I knew we didn't do anything really. If somebody's new in the spring, so it's like here, and I do the new employee orientation keeps getting more comprehensive. So I do think it's working so that they're not kind of going in blind as they were before. So it's like, here's your Blackboard shell and you're right, here you go. But now I do feel like we do a better job of informing them on the basics of what they're going to have to do to get the semester going, which is what, onboarding is. Again, the professional development will come later. And then here, this wide support, such as resource platforms. I think, now Morgan has beefed that up as well. Like when you go on to Blackboard, there are avenues that have these resources for our adjunct faculty. I still think that sometimes they don't know they're there. So it's like, where is the communication breaking down? And they can't get to them. And then mentoring programs. They always speak of this. I don't know how we're formally assigning mentors. I think there are mentors for new faculty for sure, full-time new faculty. Do we have a mentor for our adjuncts? I think we just say it's the program director or is who the mentor would be for adjuncts. So I do think we technically have a mentoring program there. And then faculty communities that extended beyond individual departments. And this, I don't think we do this, but they would have meetings where the adjunct faculty from all departments would meet, and that's who would be in the meeting. And they would be talking about things that were applicable just to adjuncts across departments to see what was going well, what wasn't going well. And that might be an idea. I don't know that we've ever had just a meeting of all of the adjuncts to see, get their feedback. Might be something to think about. So the report included 4 recommendations for colleges that want to strengthen adjunct engagement programs. Use local data to guide decisions. And in a minute, there was a chart that actually from that study, they analyzed the data of what the adjunct faculty were saying, some areas that they would like to see more opportunity in. Embed supports into the existing structure, align adjunct support with broader institutional goals and infrastructure so they are sustainable, and review policies affecting adjunct work lives. Look critically at how hiring, compensation, evaluation, and other policies influence the ability of adjunct faculty to engage and succeed. And it never hurts, like I talked about, we did look and we realized that they needed more money, but I think we still know that they still need more money. So do we need to revisit that? Is that in our strategic plan of improving student success and retention? Does this play a vital role where it would be worth looking at again to think we really need to pay them even more than we're paying. And establish clear goals for engagement efforts and implement plans to assess whether the strategies are working. So that was all what the research said. And then I had this, I just pulled this out of that article. It talked about the feature of the position and the percent of respondents feeling satisfied. So when you look down the list, I thought, does this kind of look like what our adjuncts would say? You know, or is this autonomy? A lot of them felt like they could do what they wanted with their courses. I think we would probably grade that high. Administrative support was really high at these 6 colleges. Do we feel like our adjuncts would be that high? Would it be that high? Supervision and department leadership was high. Would they feel like they're being led well at the department and program level? Overall satisfaction, it started declining here. How satisfied would our adjuncts say they are with working here? And professional relationships with colleagues was at 68%. Teaching load was 59% were satisfied with their teaching load. What do you all think that meant? What do you think? Why was it only 59% with their teaching load? Do you think they, wanted more classes to teach, or they were asked to teach too many classes as an adjunct? What would our adjuncts, how would they answer that?
With the ACA, they can't go over 3 a semester.
Right.
So I don't know how they would have been.
Unless unless it was said that didn't really want to teach 3 and they were teaching, I don't know, were asked to teach that many.
Sometimes the semester has very few students, and sometimes you have a packed class, and so the grading is a lot heavier. So, I mean, it could just be one class, but it differs from semester to semester.
It's true.
Yeah, and it differs from course to course too. So some adjuncts might feel like this 3 hours is a lot of my time versus if somebody was an adjunct for a class that only had, 8 to 10 students. That might have been it. Salary and benefits, 48% said that they were satisfied. What do you think ours would say? How many percent would be satisfied? It would probably be a lot lower than that. I can guarantee. Job security, I think ours might be higher than this because I think I know when I get an adjunct and they're like, I'll stay. I'm like, please stay, not leave. So that I think would be a little bit different. Prospects for career, very low here. And that's looking at kind of these two go together. Availability for full-time position. And this, when I read about what this actually meant, it meant how well is this adjunct position helping them advance, whether it be in the college or even advance within their clinical career. So it was very low there. I know that here, I don't know how many of our adjuncts, I do feel like a significant percent do end up eventually working here full time. So this one might be a little higher. And I do think that makes them more willing to work harder because they feel like there's something on the other end for them.
I mean, there's a lot to that, though. I mean, I was an adjunct for 7 years before a full-time position eventually that I chose to apply for it. But that was never the end goal. For some people, that is the end goal. They're not going to wait 7 years.
Right. Yeah.
So it's a mixed bag.
Because you're right. If this was
11.
Yeah. And where you
Well,
trying to
temporary full-time now.
Yeah.
But yeah, you think about if that is a person's the only reason they're doing it, they're probably not going to wait 11 years. There must have been another end goal. But now you're here and you're just so happy.
I'll check onto your pay, but I was an adjunct starting in 2002. And at that point, when I saw the scale, had I had a doctorate degree, I don't have one now, but had I had it, 1,800 is what you would have gotten paid in 2002 to adjunct a 3-hour class.
Inflation.
So that's what we're paying now, 23 years later.
Right.
So.
Yeah, when I was doing this, presentation, I thought, I know I want to say, we need to do this, this, and this, but the only thing that I feel like, that the number one priority should be paid. I wish we could figure out a way to do that. I don't want that.
Well, or
I don't-
maybe, be able to adjust it based on class size. Maybe there should be, like I teach culinary.
Mhm.
If I were an adjunct, I was an adjunct at West Virginia at WU Tech, and big difference teaching 18 versus 6. But I got the same pay. There's a lot more work involved
Yeah.
with the high.
That is something to think about. I know that the adjunct pay used to be based on degree level. There was an increase
Yeah.
in pay based on what your degree was.
Back then it was.
No.
No.
15 degree.
Are they getting $600?
Yes, everybody's getting 600.
Because it used to be years ago, like 2002 was 1,200, 1,500, and 1,800.
Yes.
And then at one point it became like 1535. Like they made everything kind of be in the middle. But then they just raised it. So
Because when I was factory council president when all that was going on, and I think when we looked at the numbers back then, it really positively affected the majority of our adjuncts. Which was saying something, right? It was saying that a lot of our adjuncts were getting that lower, level. They were at the associate or the bachelor's level, and they were getting the bottom.
Yeah, like or something, a credit hour.
But I do know that now, the doctor will take a pay cut. You have your doctorate and you're an adjunct here, they took a pay cut with that. It's like, great, now we're gonna pay, because I had an adjunct that has her doctorate degree and she got a pay cut. It's like, can you still stay, please? Okay, I'm gonna skip this. And we'll talk. We're gonna go quickly to our activity. It's a thank, pair, share from this morning. So I want you just to kind of get with a partner really quick. We're going to make this quick. What is one barrier your adjunct faculty face? Just answer that question. And then what is one strategy you would implement this semester to correct that barrier? And then discuss that briefly with the colleagues. So Kristen's just going to give you a piece of paper, just jot it down real quick. Then we're going to take it up and then we'll discuss it. Briefly. Thank you. So just quickly jot that down and.
What is the barrier?
I know, I'm sorry. Sir, I won't call on you.
special things. He has given me the knowledge of how the whole thing works. And I agree.
I'm just trying to get.
We changed I'm gonna get some other. We're like, they don't have I'm supposed to expect them to teach, because I'll have industry say, teach this new skill, this new skill.
Yeah, that's like your big thing up here. So I think yes, and their schedules. So it's obviously otherwise.
All right, so what did you guys come up with for just one barrier that you think adjunct faculty face?
Biggest one for me recently, been black. They just don't have time to learn it. And it's changing so much. And even Blackboard is updating ultimately on a regular basis now too. And so it's like, they don't know where things are, they don't know where to find things. You give them a blank vanilla shell, then they're stuck at square one. So to me, that's been the biggest issue recently.
I had Chris Matthews solve that.
Yeah, same.
So I can take it
Gotcha.
to the paper crawl program because they're lost.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I uploaded all their stuff from last spring for them, all five from back home.
Which is
I've
great.
created all the shells. But all their shells, all my shells, yeah.
Yeah. Which is nice that we're able to do that, but then at the same time, when you create that classroom, and I'm super, super guilty of this, going in, creating everything, but then they're just going in and learning the very basic to tweak it. So then it's kind of still on me to go back and like make the needed changes where things are updating. So I definitely think that is a huge barrier. Did anybody have anything different?
So what I heard was that there's no college recognition of adjuncts, so they're not involved into anything. They don't really know what's happening at Mount West as a whole. They're just isolated to the course of their team.
Yes, we're gonna talk about inclusion of adjuncts, in just a second. So that's a really good point. I definitely want to get on that later. And then what's one strategy you could implement this semester with adjuncts? Do you think would be maybe effective?
Absolutely, more decision making. Instead of saying, hey, this is what I need you to do, say, this is what we need to be done, how would you do it? I mean, if none of us, you can't up there pay at least up their involvement.
Right. Maybe asking like input
Right.
from all their decision making, maybe more control of their own courses, things like that. Anything else?
Exorcism.
Say that again.
Exorcism.
Okay.
So like most situations you need,
Okay.
the adjunct member that I work with is at our partner site, and she's a full-time employee of the county, you know, as in the K-12 system. So they have like their own set of way of doing things. So the biggest barrier, I think, and Donna, you can probably speak to this too, I think it's been getting her to know what a college adjunct faculty member looks like, that we need her to be doing. So it's been a challenge.
For sure.
I
can
did
see
use
that.
the input thing out in up there and other helping, you know, how we wanted to do the classes this spring. So I don't know if that's going to help or not, but I did go up and get her in because it's just been me by myself for a long time, so.
Right. All right, so implementation and planning. So of course, start very small and then build off of that. And then the strategies that Kelly went over, definitely pilot the first two, which the first one was communication hubs, weekly, bi-weekly communication. Of course, gather feedback and then adjust according to that feedback. And also use the sample 30, 60, 90-day plan. So within 30 days, you should establish your communication hub. 60 days, schedule regular updates, and then in 90, evaluate. And then measuring for success, of course, look at response rates, retention, satisfaction, and the biggest one, adjunct feedback. And then sustaining engagement, create consistency, and then maintain it. Reassess strategies annually and continue listening to adjunct voices. Get their feedback is something that just keeps popping up throughout. And then these are just some takeaways. Your engagement should be very intentional with your adjuncts. Flexibility is key. Communication builds connection. And then the small changes have the biggest impact. So these are just some resources for some tips for engaging with adjunct faculty. I'm going to pull all those up for the sake of time, but some things that kind of stood out to me, 70% of faculty are adjuncts at most institutions. That to me seems like a pretty high number. So it talks about having such a high number of adjuncts is all the more reason to make sure they are very much included. And it talks about inclusion is not just saying, here's an adjunct orientation once a year, show up and then teach your class. It talked about including adjuncts in decision-making, which I think one of you guys said that earlier, but even including them in assessment processes. So I know my adjuncts are working on assessment reports right now, and Morgan and I kind of did a little pilot assessment report training with ECE and elementary adjuncts last semester, I think. And I was really worried that they were going to kind of give me a little bit of flack over it and kind of say, I really don't have time for this. I don't make enough money for this. Why do I have to do this assessment report? They all did it, and I've been sort of helping them, but honestly, from what I saw that they've done so far, it went really well. So that might be something that you all get sent out at some point, is that little pilot training we did to share with maybe your own adjuncts. It did seem to be really successful. Another thing that it talked about was that keep in mind that your adjuncts are the ones that are currently in the field. So they are in the real world environment. And I think about me with, ECE, for example. I've been out of an ECE classroom for almost 6 years. So even though I go out and I observe teachers, I feel like I know a little bit of what's in the now, hopefully, but I'm still not in the classroom day to day. So the adjuncts in that field, especially, are the experts. They have things that they can keep me in the know about, latest trends. So it talks about, including them for their benefit, but also it can be beneficial to you as program coordinators or things like that. So I just ask adjuncts, ECE, elementary ed, of course, what are some things that you feel are really well at Mount West that are effective for you? What are some things we could do better at? And so this is what they had to say. They said that adjunct training is effective. They are referring to the orientation that we do in August. They complained about Pearson accounts. They thought Pearson was difficult to work with, and well, that was true. I had to get Kathy involved. She had to call them. It should not have been that big of a process, but it was. They like that we have the adjunct office where they can go in and get supplies they need. They like the assessment training that Morgan and I did to help them with assessment reports. They complain about Blackboard Ultra. I think somebody said that earlier. They are not happy with it, but they're trying to learn. So they would like a specific training on how the flagging system works. They had a lot of trouble if you didn't click in a certain spot, it did not take you to what you needed. Very frustrating. So I have to agree with them on that one. And then they said that they felt they had a lack of knowledge of resources. So I asked, do you mean resources for students or resources for you or both? And they said both. So, any thoughts you want to share out? Any questions?
So that assessment, is that done at the end of every semester for every adjunct?
Assessment reports.
Is there like a form that the college sends to an adjunct and says, hey, give us your feedback on how it went?
Or did you just?
No, I think that was,
No.
yeah.
I think that would be a great idea.
That probably.
This is just something I just anecdotally did with the adjuncts for ECE and elementary ed. I didn't do anything official, no. Although I think that was a great idea.
You can't address them if there isn't a list of problems.
Right.
Yeah, I do think, and we talked about, I think that would be good.
CETL, I think.
Standardized forms sent every semester.
Something real simple,
Hey,
and that was-
how did it go?
I think it's a great idea. I think that's
Yeah,
something.
and that form, it was very simple. I think it wasn't real.
Yes.
It was just a simple right?
Yeah, we talked about that in CETL for sure, I feel like, right?
Yeah, I think we
And
have.
we're guessing what their problems are. They could tell us what they're.
I totally agree with you. Did you have your hand up?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
One of the things that my adjuncts complain about is they spend 2 full years with our students, and when it comes time for graduation, They are told they're not allowed to attend graduations on stage with the rest of the faculty.
But the adjuncts are not allowed to attend?
Wow.
Like I've had some that come to me multiple years in a row.
Having attended this last one, there was 2 full rows behind us. They could have sat in if they wanted to.
Right. That's not allowed to say, if they want a physics teacher.
Okay.
But I didn't, I'm listening, I thought were not invited or not, I don't want to say, I didn't think they were invited to attend, that they cannot sit with me.
They spent 2 full years with the same students I did. They were just as much a part of their education as I was.
Yeah, that might be something that we would definitely
No, I don't see why not.
Should be mentioned.
Yeah, more support.
But yeah, I don't have, are they able to, I don't think they're able to attend. Really?
She was I was the one that asked, and I was told to have them come, but don't say anything, was the last one I got.
All right.
So I want to be like, no, that's all. If you're gonna come, I'm not gonna come, like, first of all.
You should probably get that clarified.
Yeah, that is something we would like to try to get clarification on for sure.
Yeah, we should get that clarified.
Because there was multiple rows behind us.
Yeah.
Unless you have 70 adjuncts, I don't
Don't
see.
even wanna be there.
Yeah, yeah,
You're like, let's really come. I just wanna come.
yeah.
If you don't mind, please complete the survey.
We appreciate your,
Copy of this.
Yeah.
There was some stuff, I'm not a real fast note taker, and there was some stuff that flipped by me, so I would love to
Sure.
have a copy of it, just to.
We absolutely can.
and then we'll ask Morgan, I don't know about that survey. I think that is a good idea to see if that's going to be coming soon. But we can just quickly send out to all our adjuncts at the end of each semester to see how does it go.
Yeah.
Just getting their feedback.
All right. Well, thank you all.
We've just done that.